So, hello, welcome winners from CFCR, welcome celebrities and friends, and everyone else that showed up. This is great. So, this is called Surfing the Matrix with Tinfoil Hat Lady. I am the Tinfoil Hat Lady. And we're going to be talking a lot tonight about fractals and other weird subjects. I'm going to basically be skipping a stone over a very deep lake of subjects. So I can't go too deep into all of them, but we are going to be mentioning a lot of things tonight. But I will give you a break at different points throughout the evening, so don't fear. I'm sure you'll leave with your brain intact and maybe even stronger than before. Just never know. So again, my name's Beata Van Berkom, and I have some letters behind my name there, so I'll just explain myself. MLT, I am a medical laboratory technologist. Yeah, I'm a scientist, believe it or not. And I'm working in hematology at St. Paul's Hospital most of the time when I'm not researching very anomalous, weird, and mysterious subjects and things like that. CAEA, that means Canadian Actors Equity Association. That means I'm also a professional actor. Oh, da, 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 da. Not that I get a ton of work doing that, but I do voiceovers and other fun things once in a while. And BFit means that I was a belly fit instructor, and I used to actually teach belly fit right in this room. And this room was also the place where I did my very first talk years and years ago. And I really love this room, so that's why I've coerced you all to come into this beautiful round room. And I'm also into inversion, nutrition, sound healing, Reiki, pranic healing. Again, I'm a researcher. Some people call me a natural intuitive. That happens sometimes. And sometimes I like to call myself an advisor. So if you want to know more about me, you can go to tinfoilhatlady.com. And I also have my tinfoil therapies tag on there too. So you can look up that later. Now, advisor. Why do I call myself an advisor? Well, I thought it was fair because I am going to give you a lot of advice on, your spiritual, eternal nature. So I looked it up in the dictionary, and it said one who gives advice. So check. Right? I thought that's good. That's good. And also an educator or a teacher responsible for advising students. So you're going to be my students tonight. Students, my nice Canadian accent. So that's really true for what we're doing tonight. And the third definition was a fortune teller. I thought that was really apropos because I do read tarot cards too. So it all works out, right? So tonight I've called it Natural Science in You, Connecting to Bio-Spiritual Self and Revealing the Matrix. So we're gonna find out that you are a little bit more than you think you are. Tonight I'm gonna talk to you about human essence, human senses, humanity, compassion, wisdom, and also the differences between empathy, sympathy, and compassion. Now we think we know what these things are, but really, who are you? And how do you, as a human, really work? How do you function? We don't really think about it. But this is a DNA suit of technology that we inhabit. And we don't really think of ourselves as technology. But I want to offer tonight that I think we're probably one of the most extreme forms of technology that's on the planet. So I'm going to suggest that you are actually two things tonight. You are yourself, and you are also your divine self. So there's the material you, and then there's the spiritual you. There's two cords, or you could call it two serpents. In Egyptian symbolism, they always have the disc and the wings and the two serpents, and I think that might have something to do with this. So let's continue. Now, in Egypt, when I went, they taught us about a time before pre-dynastic Egyptians were around, and they called it Kemet. And chematology is a little different than Egyptology. So they have an idea that the gods and goddesses were actually netters or natures. And they say that we don't just have 5 senses or natures, they say we have 360. So we're down to 5 senses from 360. Well, I thought, wow, that's a lot of senses. Like, how does that even work? So I was in the bathtub one day thinking about this, and I thought, well, 360 is like a circle. So I quartered it up into physical, spiritual, mental, and emotional, and then cut them in half again to 45 male and 45 female. So that's just a little schematic of you. So each of the temples in Egypt are actually tuned to a different netter or a different human nature. And that's what those temples were about. So the site where the temple is built dictates what's built there. So what are we really talking about tonight? We're talking about finding joy, finding peace, and finding out how not to suffer too much when you're in the Earth School. So this Earth School, or this place, I also like to call the holographic cafe. It's like a big holographic cafe, right? Because in reality, consciousness is actually the cook in the kitchen of the holographic cafe. But we've kind of forgotten about that. So these are some symbols that represent the concept of our basic human nature, the energy or the spiritual self. Now, where do we even find this self? Okay, we're going to take a moment here, and we're going to have a physical experience to try to tap into this self. So I want you to just take a moment, and we're going to do some inner body awareness. So we're going to close our eyes, close your eyes, and then take one full conscious breath. Inhale and exhale. Keep your eyes closed. Now I want you to think about your inner body. Start to become aware of your inner body. And the best way to try to get in there is by focusing on your hands and feet. So just take a moment and focus on your hands and on your feet. Keep breathing, and pretty soon you might find that you're going to feel a tingling in your hands and feet. Once you feel that tingling, you'll know that you're connected to your inner body. And then using your breath and your imagination and your inner body awareness, you can pull that tingling right up your legs. You can pull it right up your arms. And then right into your torso until the tingling becomes your whole inner body. We don't usually take time to feel our inner body, but that's the physical sensation that I want you to remember tonight when I'm talking about your spiritual self, that one chord that we don't really think about, our energetic, bio-spiritual self. Well done. Take one more breath. Inhale, exhale, gently open your eyes back up. All right. So that's what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about that energy self. And these diagrams here are sort of a symbol of that. We have the caduceus. We have the Egyptian man with the emerald tablet, and he's holding it right by his heart, which is the green heart chakra. He's got his foot on the reptile. In the second image, we have the two snakes with the wings and the pine cone, which is the pineal gland. And then we have the lady with the snakes and the wings and the rays from her crown chakra. And then the basic symbol for the chakra system. Who's aware of the chakra system in here? Could I see some hands? Anybody heard the chakra system before? Okay, good. I thought so. All right, so fractal matrix. As above, so below. So what is a fractal? A fractal is a complex geometric pattern exhibiting self-similarity in that small details of its structure, viewed at any scale, we're going to talk about fractal scaling laws of the universe, so small details of its structure viewed at any scale repeat elements of the overall pattern. So it's basically a repeating pattern. It's like macrocosm, microcosm. Now, I want you to imagine that the holographic cafe is kind of like the holodeck from Star Trek. Everybody knows about the holodeck from Star Trek, right? Where you can just imagine anything you want, and there it is. So this is kind of akin to our reality, and this is the big secret, that our consciousness is actually what is eternal about us, and our consciousness has the ability to affect the material reality around us. It's stunning, but it's definitely true. I'm going to show you some science later to prove that. So everything is one. All is definitely connected. There's a man named Nassim Haramein. Has anybody heard of Nassim Haramein? Yeah, awesome. You have. Okay. Well, he's done 2 videos, 2 lectures that I want to suggest that you look up later. And that's where he talks about the fractal scaling laws of the universe. His videos are called Black Hole, W-H-O-L-E, and of course the Crossing the Event Horizon series. They're both excellent and touch on a lot of things that I'm just going to skim over tonight. So he also describes the toroidal feedback system inherent in all life on all scales. And this toroidal feedback system, if you think of an apple is kind of like a little torus. So are blood cells, everything actually down to the atom has an energy pattern that's like a little toroidal vortex. And this is how we inform the holographic cafe of our orders. So this is how our thoughts are always feeding back. So what we're thinking is creating our reality. So what time is it? Time to wake up. And we know from the ancient time cycles that are ending now that it's definitely time to wake up. The Mayan long count has ended in 2012, and it's also the end of the age. It's the precession change. So the Mayan long count calendar went from August 11th, 311 BC, to December 21st, 2012. And the precession of the equinox, because of the Earth's wobble, okay, so it precesses backward through the zodiac, so we're going from Pisces to Aquarius, and that's like a 26,000-year cycle. So it's the dawning of the age of Aquarius. You guys have all heard about that, right? Yeah. There's also the Vedic or Hindu time systems that are ending now. I won't go through all of them, but let's just say it's the end of a kalpa. It's a 4.4 billion year cycle where they say Brahma opens his eyes, closes his eyes, opens his eyes, and closes his eyes. So there's always this back and forth. There's always this tick-tock. We're always kind of following a sine wave back and forth. So the Earth is now entering a new day of Brahma when the cycle of the human soul evolution makes a quantum leap out of darkness and into the light. And that's why we're all here, to enlighten ourselves and to think new thoughts. So after 2012, I don't know about you guys, but I was definitely called. And I got to do some traveling. In 2013, I was able to join the Kemet School on a full tour of Egypt, and that's where I met the Awan family, Patricia and Yusuf Awan. And then in 2013, later in that year, I was able to go to Peru and Bolivia. I saw Amamaru, Sun Island, Pumapunku, Tiwanaku, and I traveled with Brian Forrester and David Hatcher Childress, and they've both been on Ancient Aliens. I don't know if you guys know David Hatcher Childress, but he's pretty awesome. And Brian Forrester, the guy with the big skulls, well, he doesn't have one, but he has a lot in his museum. And then I went back to Peru in 2014 to see the Nazca Lines, the Ica Stones, the Paracas Skulls, and the Ballista Islands. Oh boy, those islands, it's fantastic. But it was a 3-hour tour, and there was a lady on a megaphone always talking about the Peruvian boobies, because there was a lot of birds and wildlife that she was pointing out. So it was a lot of Peruvian boobies. And Brian Forrester was also with us on that tour, and Hugh Newman from the UK was with us that time. And then in 2016, I had a chance to tour England from Manchester to Wiltshire over to Glastonbury with Robert Hulse, who is a UFO experiencer and researcher and a crop circle expert. And then this year in March, I went back to Egypt and Jordan, and I got to go to Petra, Amman, and Aqaba, which was fantastic. And that's where I got my bracelets in Petra. All the boys there look like Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean, and they just make you want to buy stuff. It's pretty fun. And the Awans were with us there, and Brian Forrester was with us again, and Susan Moore is now the geologist for the Kemet School. I met her in Peru and Bolivia in 2013, introduced her to the Kemet School, and now she's traveling all over the world with them. It's always nice to have a geologist around. And now, later this month, I'm going to head back to the Sacred Valley to the Source, and I'm going to have a little experience with ayahuasca at a medicine retreat there, so you never know, I might be doing a talk about that next. And Tobias Lars of spiritualtravelers.org is going to be our tour guide for that. This is my Kemet School t-shirt, and you can find out more about the Kemet School at chemetology.com. They do tours all the time, and it's fantastic. So now you're going to have to sit through some selfies. Here's me and Tefnut at the Giza Plateau. The Kemet School calls the Sphinx Tefnut. They say that she's actually female. So originally, her head was a lion, and of course, the sand came up and her head eroded away, and the dynastic Egyptians plunked another head on there. And they tried to put a beard on, but that beard kept falling off. She just didn't like that beard. And then at Sun Island in Lake Titicaca, here's another selfie of me at the crossing point of the plumed and rainbow serpent lines, which are energetic lines that run around the planet. And there was a bunch of pigs running around this island too. I don't know, it was very strange. I didn't actually see the pigs like when I was there, but when I looked at my pictures afterwards, there were all these pigs. So I don't know what was going on. There's no oxygen there, so I could barely breathe. Then we went to the Sun Gate at Calasasea Temple in Bolivia. And this is actually an example of ancient technology because this is a completely flat piece of stone. This is proof that they had a technology to cut stone that we don't really understand nowadays. It's completely flat on the front. Nazca, Peru, just to prove that I went to all these places. And that's me at the Salisbury Plain with my chemist school shirt. And then this is in March, Patricia Wan and I in front of the beautiful treasury at Jordan, where I bought my bracelets. And this is me at Abydos, the Assyrian in Egypt in 2013. Now this little area here where the little triangle is, that's where these flower of life symbols are etched into the granite. This whole temple sits 50 feet lower than the Temple of Seti. Now, Egyptologists are going to tell you that these two temples are contemporary to each other, but I'll tell you right now, this temple was not built by the same people who built the Temple of Seti. We think in the Kemet school that Seti built his temple there to commemorate the culture that came before. This earth has probably housed many high technology cultures, and cataclysms have wiped them out. So a lot of these sites have been repurposed. The Assyrian is a great example of that. There's also some knobbies on the wall back there that I don't have a picture of. I can't show you all my pictures, but on the wall at Abydos, there's a line where the flood was, and they have the rulers before the flood, and they have the rulers after the flood. And of course, our historians will only acknowledge the rulers after the flood, and they just say, oh, the rulers before the flood, they just made that stuff up. But it's actually on the wall there, the whole history. And this is actually the temple to Abydos, where the helicopter and the airplane and stuff are up on the ceiling. It's a little controversial, but that's the place where that is. So there's a close-up of those flower of life symbols that are etched in the little shaded area I showed you before. Now, some people say it's just red ochre. There's a number of these flower of lives etched there, but some people say that it's actually laser cut. Now, we couldn't get down there. We couldn't climb up to confirm that, so it's still a bit of a mystery. It was a bit more of a close-up of them. And that is the pattern, the vector matrix equilibrium. It's the underlying blueprint that holds the information for creation. So everything in 3D is represented here in the flower of life. So everything emerges and returns to a fundamental field of information that connects us all. And this is the fundamental point that I'm going to make today. So how can we understand how we fit into this natural law system? How can we use our DNA suits and our consciousness to create the world that we want? Well, Dr. Phil says we can't change what we don't acknowledge. He does. So let's look at how we use logic in our understanding of our reality, because I'm going to suggest that we're using an outdated form of logic. So we're going to talk about classical logic versus quantum logic. And I got this proof from Gary Zukav, and he wrote a book called The Dancing Wulai Masters. So classical logic is what we expect. It's this or that. It's basically a belief. Quantum logic is what we experience. It's this and that. So we call it knowing. Now, how can we prove the validity of quantum logic? Well, we're going to use light filters. And I'm just going to give you a short little scientific demonstration here. So we have these horizontal and vertical filters here. Here's vertical filters, and they're blocking, just letting, horizontal light through. So horizontal and vertical filters block respective light. Used together, it filters all light. Now, this is an H and this is a V. So we use a horizontal filter and a vertical filter, all the light is blocked. No light is getting through when we're using both of these filters. So we have our diagonal filter. So we just wonder, if we use this diagonal filter in front, right here, doesn't have any effect, no light is still not getting through, we put the diagonal filter in front. No light is getting through. However, what do we expect would happen if we put the diagonal filter between the horizontal and the vertical filter? Does anybody have a guess? No? Well, I would think that it's not going to make much of a difference, because if you've got a horizontal and vertical filter, you're blocking all the light. However, when we put the diagonal filter between, all the light gets through again. That's not what we would expect. So quantum wins. So experience is more to truth than expectation. So that's just a short little demonstration from Gary's book. Expectation, again, equals belief. Experience equals knowledge. So expectation supports false reality. It creates frustration and denial. It creates dogma, and it creates violence. Experience is the true reality, reflecting and revealing authenticity and truth. Okay, here's where we get a little weird. So warning. Are you a human being, or are you just a human doing? I'm going to make a distinction between those two things today. And I'm going to challenge you to think differently. Do we really know ourselves? Do we know our fundamental human nature, our human essence? Do we know our human senses? What is our humanity? What is compassion? What is wisdom? We think we know, but do we? So again, I suggest that you are two. You are the divine, you are the material you, and the spiritual you. You have two cords. We hang on to two cords like two serpents almost. And the medical symbol of the caduceus, again, reflects this. Now, if you lose your grip on one of the cords, what do you think happens? Most of us have a good grip on our material self. We identify very strongly with the physical body. But our spiritual cord, sometimes we kind of lose a grip on that. And I think that this brings loss of human nature. I think it brings loss of human sense. It's almost like we lose our senses when we lose our spiritual cord. It brings loss of our humanity. But our culture has us so focused on doing and doing and doing and invested into the material that we basically forget who we are. Our natural state is not doing, but it's fundamentally being. But we don't have any time for being, so we tend to lose our humanity. In fact, I suggest we almost have lost our humanity, because like, when can we be? Diversion is all around us. Entertainment is right there. Nobody likes silence. The TV is always on. We're going to be on our computer. We're going to be looking at our smartphone. We got our Apple Watch. We got our Fitbit. We don't really have time for reflection or being. So that leads to the loss of our human nature. Again, the loss of our human senses. So how is this information sitting with you guys? Have I lost anybody? Is everybody's okay? Thumbs up? Good, good, good. Any cognitive dissonance in the house yet? No? No? Does everybody know what cognitive dissonance is? Well, sometimes people hold a belief that is very strong. And when presented with evidence that works against the belief, the new evidence can't be accepted. And it creates an extremely uncomfortable feeling called cognitive dissonance. I know you probably have some friends that have trouble with this too. And this feeling, cognitive dissonance, is definitely a problem for some people. Because it's so important to protect the core belief, people will rationalize, ignore, and even deny anything that doesn't fit in with the belief. Oh, and it always comes back on you. I'm telling you, you just can't get away from it. So now quickly, I'm skipping a stone here. We're going to go to our history, because that's another belief that we have, that our history is very short. And I'm going to just try to nudge you towards the idea that our history is very long. So here we are at Tiwanaku in Bolivia, and we're going to go through the looking glass. Are you ready? Jump! Oh, we made it. And there I am in my t-shirt. And there's Brian Forrester, and his website is hiddenincatours.com, and he's sitting there next to one of these people from the world before. These people were a little different than us. They had a different skeletal structure, and they definitely had a different cranium. So here's a human skull versus an elongated skull, or an anomalous skull, whatever you want to call it. So if you take a good look here, you can see that the shape of the skull is not really like ours. The cranial volume is a bit bigger. It's not just head binding, though people did bind their heads, I think, to look like these people. They also have this kind of bump and parietal plate on their forehead, and their sutures in the skull are very different from Homo sapiens. Their jaws are a little bigger, and their faces are just a little bit more narrow. I didn't take this picture, but I physically saw these skulls in Ica, Peru, the Chongos skulls. The Chongos is a graveyard out in the desert in Peru where a lot of these guys have been found. And I was really interested in these skulls because I thought that they were actually going to be a lot bigger, but I think their faces were a lot narrower than ours. And you think about wizard hats and big, long, tall hats, and you just wonder, how did we get this idea of these tall hats? Did it come from these old wise ones, whoever they were? Now, I definitely took this picture. This is probably the coolest picture I ever took in my life. When we were at Pumapunku, we went to a cafe, and the cafe owner said, hey, I was doing some digging in my yard, and I have a shed in the back, and I found some stuff. Would you guys like to see what I found? And we were like, holy crap, wow. So there's all these machined blocks, there's bones, there's artwork, and of course, these big, big skulls. Now, this one really caught my attention. It's a real skull. So does anybody remember from history who has a skull like this? Let's see. Oh yeah, Mary Totten. She was the daughter of Akhenaten and Nefertiti. And this is a bust of her in one of the museums in Egypt. She has a bit of a head that's quite like that skull, but she also has quite a longer neck than most of us have. There's her mother, Nefertiti, with another one of these long, bald heads, and she's got it under a nice, long hat. And there's the famous picture of Nefertiti. And again, I suggest that she wore a hat like this because she had a big head and a very long neck, very elegant looking. And there's the other side of her daughter's head. And I think it's fair to say that people like this actually walked the earth at one time. And here's the picture of Akhenaten and Nefertiti and their daughters. And as you can see, the daughters all have these nice little baby bows on, but they all have bald heads that are very elongated. And the parents with their big, long, tall hats on. And of course, they're talking about the sun. The sun is really important in ancient technology, and it's also very important in ancient mythology. And the path of the sun is basically the path of your life. We're going to get into that later. So there's also a thing called the mystery tool of the ancients. The ancients had some kind of tool that we don't understand, and it left marks in different places, distinctive ridge marks. And these marks are found globally, not just in Peru and Egypt, but in Syria, in Turkey, in China, all over the world. So there was actually a global civilization before us. It leaves scoops in granite like ice cream. And according to a document that I read by Matilda McElroy, the tools are depicted in the hands of the Ponce stele at Calacicea Temple at Tiahuanaco in Bolivia. Say that 5 times fast. So Matilda McElroy was actually a nurse in the 40s. And apparently there was a being that the army had found in a crash site. And this being would only talk to Matilda psychically. The being would not answer any questions, but this being, who identified as female, offered a lot of information about Earth's history. If you go to her website, isbealliance.org, you can read the document, and I highly recommend you do. Chapter 7 and 8 on Earth history is really exciting. And I think guys like George Lucas and Steven Spielberg probably read this because it's going to resonate with you. You're going to have heard these stories before. So it's very, very interesting. And again, it's from around 1947. Here's some of those ridge marks in the Longyu Caves in China. They're very distinctive. If you look on Wikipedia about the Longyu Caves or on my blog, tinfoilhatlady.com, you'll see that they don't even know who built these caves. It's a big mystery who even built these caves, and they were only discovered very recently. At the Aswan Quarry, I took this picture. I did not go to China and take that picture, but I did take this picture in the Aswan Quarry. This is red granite. Now, these are the scoop marks, the anomalous scoop marks that I'm talking about. And I don't know if somebody was just standing there having fun, just doing whatever. These other little marks here are Roman quarry marks. And here's another little bit of Roman quarry mark here. What they would do was to make a little divot, put some wood in, put water on the wood, and then swell the wood, and then pop the granite off, and then it left a very rough surface, as you can see here. But this flat area right here is a cut. It's a saw cut, and it's very flat. So when you look at the Aswan quarry, you're actually looking through time. Site transformation is what they always impressed on us. A lot of people, came to this quarry and quarried much later, but these scoop marks were already there. And so was the unfinished obelisk. Now, there's 2 unfinished obelisks. I didn't know that. This is our guide, Stephen Mailer, and this is Chris Dunn, engineer. I have their books here tonight, and that's my shadow. And they're going down underneath the second unfinished obelisk. And again, you can see these giant ridge marks cut into the granite. Now, once you get down under, again, you can see these scoops coming up and under, just like that. Now, I wonder who's going to be the last guy to cut. They must have had anti-gravity, because how are they going to lift this megaton obelisk out? We don't know. Here's a picture of Brian going down to the unfinished obelisk. And again, you can see these ridge marks very clearly. These were not made with dolerite pounders. They're going to tell you when you're here, that these little dolerite stones are how they did this. And they'll be like, yes, they just dropped it, and this is how they did it, madam. And I said, wow, well, why haven't the tourists banged out another obelisk then by now, And they laugh, ha, ha, ha. Well, I don't think that's how they made this, and I don't think the dynastic Egyptians made this either. So you can also see some of the scoop marks here right on the unfinished obelisk. And there's the telltale ridge marks just a little bit closer. So there's Chris Dunn. He wrote the book Giza Power Plant, and the Lost Technologies of Ancient Egypt, and it was just wonderful to have him with us. This stone back here also had some very interesting cuts in it. I wish I could show you guys everything, but we'd be here like for a week. And there's my selfie at the unfinished obelisk, just for proof. Now, here's the Pont Stele at Calisasea in Bolivia. Now, these are the tools, apparently, right here in his hands. That's what the being told Matilda, that there is a depiction of these tools on our planet, and this is where it is. So I had to go to Bolivia and find out. Now, David Hatcher Childress came with us, and he's the guy that's on Ancient Aliens a lot. He's got a nice Louisiana accent. Anyway, we were standing looking at this, and I said, David, what are those things in his hands? So I didn't want to be too cocky, And he said, well, Beata, those are his ritual cups. His ritual cups. Okay. I said, well, David, maybe those are actually the tools used to make these cuts and things. And he kind of looked at me, looked back, and he said, perhaps you're right. He's a very nice man. Sometimes you meet authors and they're not that nice, especially not with new ideas. So there's a close-up of the tools, and you can see, too, that he's got 2 left hands. His right hand, if it was his right hand, why is his thumb up at the top? It's very interesting. I don't have an explanation for that. There's a pencil sketch of it, so you can kind of see a little bit better. And down on his belt here, there's all these different, snakes and different things. And I wonder if this didn't pop out and he could put other things in there to cut in different ways. I'm just not sure. But that's supposed to be a depiction of these tools that no one can find. And there's my selfie at Pumapunku, going in there. That's where we find these H blocks. Now, that other guy, Giorgio on Ancient Aliens, said that these H blocks are definitive proof of aliens. But I think they're probably definitive proof that we've lost some of our technology, some of our technological know-how from the past world. It's hard to date stones. You can date them with the lichen. You can see there's some lichen growing on here. And there's some really nice orange lichen growing down here. This whole area at Pumapunku and Tiwanaku has been covered in mud. Now, Lake Titicaca is about 12 kilometers away right now, but they think in the past there was a global cataclysm and the lake actually swooshed over this place and just decimated it. So they're still uncovering in this day and age more very interesting things at Pumapunku and Tiwanaku. And there's Brian at some more H blocks there that you can see. And a little closer, we can see these are made of andesite, not granite, so it's a little bit softer. And that there's nice internal 90-degree corners here, and they're a bit dovetailed. So something must have slipped in there, we're not really sure. And just this year, Brian's starting to find more magnetic anomalies associated with these stones. What's that about? We don't know. This is a tooled artifact that David's pointing out in one of the cuts here. So I zoomed in on that, and there's one of those. There's a lot of erosion here. But we think that, again, this is a machine mark. It's not something that was done by hand. That's another view of that interesting stone. What it was used for, we don't know. This whole place is just jumbled up because there was such a cataclysm that destroyed it. I didn't take this picture, but there is a stone that I have another picture that I'm going to show you, but this one's a bit brighter because the sun was on the wrong side. And you can see this beautiful cut in the stone. Be very hard to do that by hand and be so perfect. This is the one that I took of it, so it's a little dark, but you can see it's basically perfect, and all those little circles are exactly spaced evenly. Now we're going to go back to the Giza Plateau in Egypt. There's me and Tefnut again. So there's me standing next to the Great Pyramid. And the first day we were there, they showed us a lot of tool marks right next to the Great Pyramid. If you don't go with the right tour guides, you're just not going to see this stuff. I'm going to show you just one or two things. I just can't show you everything because we'd be here all day. This is another beautiful example of a tool mark in one of the stones. You can see how badly eroded the stones are, but there's a cut right there. And then here's another cut in one of the stones. It's very flat here. And then these are the different radii of the saw, whatever they were using to cut these stones with. Also on the third pyramid, there's the knobbies. The knobbies are a mystery. We don't know what the knobbies are all about. You can see these bumps. There's big ones here. Not all of the stones have them. Bumpies, 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 we're not sure. Some people say, well, that's where they, lifted them up with ropes, or I'm just not sure. Because not all of the stones have them. But this was Brian's first time in Egypt, and he was very excited to see all these knobbies because, of course, these knobbies are all over in Peru. And the way this polygonal construction is, these things are very earthquake-proof. And these stones almost look like marshmallows, like somebody had heated the stones and then just set them together. It's very mysterious. I'm going to be going to Cusco soon, and I hope to get some pictures of these knobbies. So also I wanted to let you know that there's layers under the Giza Plateau. It's not just flat. There's layers and layers and layers of history. So we walked around out into the desert, and then they showed us all these different places in layers and layers underneath. When you look out from there, you just see all this sand, and you think to yourself, if I could just blow all that sand away, the Sahara Desert, just blow it away, I bet we would find lots of stuff. We just don't have the will to actually do this kind of work because we're too busy making wars and doing other fun things. So a lot of people think that, the Egyptians actually found this site this way, and these are technology left over from the world before. So site transformation. They made these things here into tombs, but these things were not intentionally created to be tombs, and the pyramids were certainly not tombs. This is Elephantine Island, and again, proof of cataclysm. There's all these granite artifacts just tossed asunder. They say that the Holy Grail or the Ark of the Covenant, not the Ark of the Covenant, the Grail, the Ark of the Covenant, one of those things was on the island there. My brain is getting scrambled here. But my point is that this artifact here is very special. It's all made of red granite, internal 90-degree corners, perfectly smooth. There's another, I call it the TARDIS. We don't know what it was used for. It looks like a TARDIS, a phone booth. And there's another one at Edfu made out of alabaster, but it's exactly the same style. And there's more than one of these around, just tossed asunder at Elephantine Island. We also saw Alexander the Great's cartouche here. The other cool place is the Serapeum. This is a place that's underneath the ground. You have to walk down under the ground, and it's like a subway station. And there's these niches, and there's giant 70-ton granite boxes in these niches. Here's an example of one of the boxes. I don't think they made that with a copper chisel. I think that the Egyptians, the dynastic Egyptians, found this site and then used it again. Some of these boxes have scratches in them, like cartouches that are empty, very poor hieroglyphics, not the people that made this box. They tell you these were for the Apis bulls. They buried bulls in these boxes. And then they also say, do not ask any more questions. And there's actually a sign there that says the guards will not answer any questions. They will not give you any information. So don't ask any cheeky questions. There's a close-up of the granite perfection of this box. Now, Chris Dunn did some, that's the interior of the box. You can see the internal 90-degree corner, and you can also see the mirror polish. And you can see there's some orbs or dust flying around there. So years ago, Chris went there, and he showed the perfection of these boxes. You can see his light is shining, and it's reflected in the top of the box. He asked a stone company, if money was no object, could you recreate this box? And they said, no. We can glue it together and make that box, but we seriously cannot reproduce this kind of stuff even today. And there's another picture of Chris, and you can see his hand in the reflection at the top. He's right inside this box. Now, also, Chris did some work with measuring some of the faces and the artifacts at Luxor Temple, and he showed that this face is a mirror. So this cannot be done by hand. It had to be done with some kind of computer program. He was just standing underneath a statue and noticed that both the nostrils were completely perfect. And so he did a lot of work to show that harmony and beauty is also reflected in the symmetry. And this face has perfect symmetry. And you're going to see this same perfectly symmetrical face everywhere throughout Egypt. It's like they only had one face. So the truth can hurt. The physical evidence at many ancient sites does not support the accepted historical timeline. So this calls for a revision of our human story. Our religious and financial and legal and educational and health systems have basically usurped our human rights. It's human nature to deny this, and argument ensues. We've forgotten our godly nature, and we've forgotten our spiritual selves. So please, as we keep going, we will have a break soon, but keep your mind open and refrain from judging till we get to the end of the presentation. I want you just to keep your heart open, keep your mind open, because in reality, this is all about you. So, conception and perception. Well, if you don't have a concept, you can't have a precept. Magellan was an explorer, and when he went to Tierra del Fuego, the people of Tierra del Fuego only had a canoe culture. So they literally could not perceive Magellan's tall ships. They couldn't perceive them until the shaman explained the concept to them. And then slowly, slowly, they were able to actually perceive the tall ships. So there must be tons of stuff around us all the time that we don't see, because your brain only tells you about what it perceives as a threat to you. So they were just seeing these guys in armor showing up on the beach. No concept, no precept. Now, how many senses do we have? We only use 5, but we have a lot more. So we can probably gain more conception and perceive more. Well, what do we see? We only see visible light. Here's the electromagnetic spectrum, but we only see this much. Everything is made of light, slower and faster moving light. But we only see a very small bit of it. Some people that are colorblind see a little bit more into infrared, see a little more into ultraviolet, but basically there's all this stuff going on around us that we just don't perceive. It's probably good or we wouldn't be able to focus, really. So we're blind and deaf. We only hear a small sliver of the audio spectrum as well, and that's why we can't hear dog whistles. So the photon, what I've learned from Wisdom Teachings by David Wilcock on Gaia, is that the photon is the smallest being in the universe. Could you imagine that? A photon. Think of it as being a being, that it's actually alive. So we have limited perception of light with our eyes, but reality is more vast than we ever usually think about, and we just perceive the small portion of it. So there's medicines for this. You can use dimethyltryptamine and sacred sacraments like salvia, and you can perceive a bit more perhaps, maybe gain some knowledge. But these are sacraments and medicines that you don't just use randomly. You have to prepare yourself, and you have to be responsible when you use them. So again, photons are alive. The law of one series, anybody heard of the law of one series? Yeah? Okay. I highly recommend that you guys do investigation and read the Law of One series. It tells us that the light is alive. Photons are the most basic form of life in the universe, and now we have the science to prove it. So the feminine force is love, the vortex energy that surrounds and shapes, the masculine force, which is the light. In the Law of One series, we are told that the universe is made of love and light, masculine and feminine. So the love is the force that shapes the light. Our entire universe is built by light and love. So fear is actually an illusion. The devil wants you to be in fear. The word devil is actually lived backwards. The word evil is live backwards. But really, there's only love and there's only light. And these are the two primary manifestations of intelligent infinity. The offspring of light and love are matter and biology, of which everything is made and everything is ultimately alive. Okay, perception. Truth is based on perception. No concept, no precept. If we can't see it, it's not real, right? If I can't hear it, it's not real. Can a fish see the water it swims in? We swim in an electromagnetic field of sound and light, but we do not perceive all of it. Matter is connected to slow-moving light that we swim in. All is actually one. So who are you? Are you your body? Where do you feel yourself to be in your body? What story were you told about who you are? We were all told a story by our parents and our families. What were you told? Has your story changed over time? Did you even know that you can change your story? You can change your mind about who you are, and your thoughts create your reality. Can you consider that you are more than you think? You exist in finer realities as well as this physical one. You are greater and more powerful than you know, and my goal is to empower you to understand who you are. So the holographic cafe. You are ordering your experiences. Would you like a side of anxiety with your breakfast? You can order that, totally. Would you like a dessert of depression? You can have that too, no problem at all. You control your responses or reactions. You are a complete electromagnetic being whose consciousness plugs into this virtual reality game called life. You use your physical body to travel around in, but you are not your mind-body personality complex. You are a consciousness who is playing a character. I'm playing Tinfoil Hat Lady, aka Beata. Henry Wolf is playing Henry Wolf, aka Superstar. Beverly Kobelski is playing Beverly Kobelski, aka Fabulous Costume Designer. Trent Dearhorn's playing Trent Dearhorn, aka Fabulous Shamanic Healer. So we're all playing a role here, but the real us is our consciousness. You are your own consciousness avatar. So it's really important for you to understand that. Your material self is kind of like your avatar. The human journey. So you are physical, you are emotional, mental, and spiritual. And you and your life path are the themes of sacred human wisdom. All our mythology is related to our life and being born, growing up, passing away, and being reborn again. The universe is a multifactorial creation into which you and your life path fit perfectly. You are perfect. There's no problem with you. Imagine that. The sun's path is the primary inspiration for all as it governs our times, seasons, and our survival. The sun was also used with lost technology. So Egypt and Kemet. Now on Netflix, there's a really good thing you can watch called The Pyramid Code. And when I got back in 2013 from Egypt, it just came out on Netflix. And I was so excited because Carmen Bolter, she's from Calgary, she went there and did this whole series. I highly recommend it because it really gives you the information about chematology that you're going to need. She got to interview Abdel Hakim Awan, the father of Yusuf. His wife is Patricia, and the founders of the Kemet School. And Hakim grew up on the Giza Plateau. He was there in 1930, you know, when sand was still up there around the Sphinx. He knows about all the passages underneath the plateau because he crawled through them. And he's the oral tradition keeper of Kemet. And she got to interview him. He passed away in 2008. But if you see the Pyramid Code, you can hear his teachings. So pre-dynastic Egypt and the surrounding areas were called the Band of Peace. Bu-wizzer. It's like we're off to see the wizard in Bu-wizzer. Or Kemet. Now, they had a capital called Memphis, but the Cometians called it Het-ka-Ptah. When the Greeks came in, they transliterated it to Egyptos, and that's where we get Egypt from. But originally, Memphis was the original capital, called Het-ka-Ptah, and that means the place of the manifestation of the spirit of Ptah. Het, place, ka, spirit, Ptah. So what's Ptah? There's Ptah. That is a symbol of what Ptah is. And I'm suggesting that he is the information pattern that creates life out of the blue. Spontaneous generation of life was actually a theory in the early 1900s, but it was taken over by Darwinism because the powers that be would rather have us believe in survival of the fittest because that makes war more acceptable, in my opinion. So spontaneous generation of life kind of got pushed aside. Another interesting thing about Ptah is he looks like he has feathers. Has anybody heard of the blue avians? Anybody heard of blue avians? Yeah, a couple people have. Well, that's in Cosmic Disclosure on Gaia with Corey Good. You can go to Sphere Being Alliance and learn more about blue avians. And he also has these tools. Now, I think these are biogeometrical tools. They used energy to heal with these tools, and he also has this necklace on. This necklace is depicted on the wall in the basement of the crypt at Dendera where the light bulbs are, and again, I think it was a technology. A man named John Keeley in the early 1900s was using this kind of technology, like an ankh, but it's actually tuned to an individual biofrequency, so people couldn't replicate it. Like he could do things with these tools, but another person couldn't come and pick it up, so people called him a fraud. But these tools were tuned to his biology. So Ptah always wears the blue cap. So I call it Out of the Blue. If you go to tinfoilhatlady.com, you can read my blog, Out of the Blue You. So again, twin serpents. That's you. And here is a very interesting thing. This is using a Tesla coil in 1979. A couple were able to show that a pyramid will make these twin serpents of energy. If you feed it a little electricity with the Tesla coil, that's how pyramid energy works. Just like your DNA, the two serpents. Your actual chakra system functions exactly like a Tesla coil. You basically, with your electromagnetic being and your toroidal feedback system, function as a Tesla coil. That is the energy that comes from you, your thoughts, and just your being. That's it right there. So there's an old riddle. What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs in the afternoon, and 3 legs in the evening? Does anybody know this riddle? You know, you know. Okay, I'll tell you. Humans, right? When you're a baby in the morning, you're on crawling, and then you're an adult in the afternoon, and then you got a cane in the evening. So you're on 3 legs. So it relates to you and your life path, and also the day. The cycles of consciousness evolution. The Mayan calendar, the precession cycle, the Yuga cycle, and the 5-sun cycle of Kemet. That was one of Hakim's best teachings as far as I'm concerned. The 5-sun cycle, the evolution of consciousness. And these cycles continue. It's like we wake up, we grow up, we go to sleep. We're born again, we wake up, we grow up, we go to sleep. So the first sun is Kepher, the Kepher beetle. He's pushing the dung ball or the sun. Kepher's pushing the sun up. It can also be known as the human birth between 2 legs, the sun rising between 2 mountains on the Hor-I Zion. Then, after dawn, it's morning, and that's Ra. So the second sun is Ra, the new morning, the adolescent, the brave, creative, daring. It's like Aries, the spring ram. Then we get to Un, the third sun, at midday, the matured one, balanced. And then Aten, in the afternoon, the wise elder. Akhenaten was actually trying to retain the wisdom of the Aten sun cycle, but the Hanuti priesthood didn't like him, and they eventually murdered him. He was trying, people say he invented monotheism, but really he was just trying to hold on to the old wisdom and made everybody focus on the sun, because the Hanudi priesthood had come in after the cataclysm, and the people couldn't go to the temples anymore because now they had to work. They didn't have free energy. The pyramids were down. The pernetters were down, the natures of the pyramid. People were dying. The lifespans were shorter. So it was quite the political nightmare at that time. But you can't beat the sun cycle, so Akhenaten was murdered. Then we have Amen in the evening. Now, we still say Amen at the end of prayers, don't we? Because that's the cycle that we're in right now. But I believe that we're moving into the Kepher cycle again. So the sun sets, Mother Newt swallows the sun, and wisdom sleeps. So we've been sleeping for a while. And the moon is out. Amen. And this is depicted at the ceiling in the chapel of Hathor. I just loved this place. It's a tiny little chapel, and then on the ceiling is this beautiful picture of Mother Newt in the sky. Here's Hathor rising between the two mountains. The first sun, we have her breast milk adding to the nourishing of the earth, and then we go right to the fifth sun where the mother's swallowing the sun, and then the cycle completes itself. Her face is the face of humanity, born from the womb of primordial waters of the Milky Way, as both the seed in the womb, the alpha masculine, the omega feminine. She is all that is, was, or ever shall be. Hathor, the place of Hor, the seed, the horizon, or the path of fertility, created by the path of the sun on the ecliptic. So this is the path of the sun and the ecliptic. All netters are the aspects of the sun as it makes its daily journey across the ecliptic of the earth, creating the sine wave cycle, or the serpent that separates light from darkness. The sun is always going down to the Tropic of Capricorn, up to the Tropic of Cancer. And that's what it does over and over and over. And then, of course, at Passover, it's passing over the equator. Passover. The Semshu Hor also labeled many as the followers of Horus. That's us, following this path of the sun or seat of consciousness. When we ask what time it is, what hour is it, we're asking, where is the sun? On the ecliptic, where is Horus? So the Horus of the day. And he is also a blue avian, which is so interesting. And he also has a lot of things in common with Jesus. He was born of a virgin. He had 12 disciples, which could be related to the 12 houses of the zodiac, or the Mazzaroth, as it says in the Bible. He healed sick and injured people. He raised Asar, or Lazarus, from the dead. He was crucified and resurrected after 3 days. And he's also known as the Lamb, the Way, and the Light. Isis is the mother of Horus. What is, the single eye, no judging, and the sun shines on all. So the day is given. Each day is given to us. The present is a gift. All is now. We are always here now. Action taken now affects the future. Actions now change conceptions that we have of the past. And peace is always with us, whether we choose to accept it or not. Accepting peace starts with understanding yourself. So what did Einstein say about this? He said, a human being is part of the whole called by us the universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings as something separate from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening out our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. So compassion is intelligent. Compassion for self first is imperative. Now, when I went to Sunday school, they taught me that the way to joy was Jesus, others, and then yourself. But I think it's backwards. I think it's Soj. You have to be compassionate with yourself first so that you can be compassionate with others, and then you can emulate the divine. So, the chakra system. Is everybody okay? Do you need to shake or anything? Remember to take conscious breaths. Just a little while longer, and we're going to have a break. So you are technology. You are here riding in a very advanced biotechnology suit. And these are the vortexes of the chakras. And these chakra vortexes actually move out and sew you into your subtle bodies. You're like a little Russian nesting doll. So you're a beautiful, biogeometrically divine creature. Again, like a Russian nesting doll. Most of your conscious awareness is in your aura, not your brain matter. You have 4 bodies, not one. So you have your physical body, and then we have our 3 subtle bodies. These bodies are layered around us from least dense to most dense. So the spiritual body is out, and the physical body is the most dense. The chakra vortex system connects the subtle bodies from your most dense, to your most dense or physical body. So it sews those etheric bodies to you. And again, there's another view of the chakra vortex system. So white light is broken into 7 visible colors. We know that as the rainbow. And you as well are a little rainbow because the chakras are colored like the rainbow. We start at the root with red and we go right up to the crown with violet. Now, I know everybody kind of knows what chakras are, so I'm not going to have too much time to talk about that. But the root chakra is about self-preservation, the navel chakra about self-gratification, the solar plexus is about the mental body, the heart chakra is about self-acceptance, throat chakra, self-expression. It's actually the first phase of manifestation. As you speak, you create geometry, which creates form. Sound creates form. The brow chakra is where you can become inspired, get insight, self-reflection. And the crown chakra is where we release and reroute new conceptual wisdom. I just thought that was a really pretty slide, so I put that in there. So the information path. As the information from the environment comes in, it comes to the root, we get a concept. We get that conception. And then we spin it out the front, and it gets sucked into the belly, we get a feeling. That's our gut feeling. And if everything's working good, it spins it back out the front, and we get our opinion about it. I'm not sure I like that. I have a concept, a feeling, an opinion, but then we pull it into the heart, and we get our second feeling. It's like the sober second thought, the senate of the body. If everything's working good, we're going to spin it out the front to the throat. We have a response. And then if everything's working good, we're going to spin it back in and we get some insight. And then at the crown, we're going to release. Our cup is going to run over. We're going to have an understanding of a processed concept. That energy is going to go down in our torus, and it's going to reroute new conceptual wisdom for others to pick up on. So really, all you have to do is be like a little earthworm and process your concepts. Because when you're doing that, you're being of service. Chakras have fractal associations, and there's a little chart just to show you. So we have the colors, we have the organs of the body, we have sounds, the notes on the piano, the vowel sounds, and we also have verbs. I have, I feel, I do, I love, I speak, I see, and I know and understand. With tinfoil therapies, I have a therapy that I can do with you to take you through using your voice to go up the scale and activate your chakras with sound. You can also do that on your own at a piano. It's just with the C scale on the piano. So your 4 bodies, they're layered around you and connected to your chakra system. You are made up of vibrational body layers or subtle bodies. There is an Indian belief that everyone is in a house of 4 rooms, a physical, a mental, an emotional, and a spiritual room. And most of us tend to live in only one of the rooms, but unless we go into every room every day, if only to keep it aired, we are not complete. So what's our first body? It's our physical body. Sensation, survival, sex, the 3rd dimensional world. The second body, emotional body. It's connected with the belly. So think about my little math equation here. Emotions plus thought equal feeling. So you change the emotion, you change the feeling. You change the thought, you change the feeling. The 3rd body is the mental body. Again, thought plus emotion equals feeling. Change any of them and you're going to get a different outcome. 4th body is the spiritual body. This is where we get those feelings, where we can now know intuition, we can now perceive discernment. Information comes into the spiritual body first, then the mental body, then the emotional body, and if you don't get the message, it manifests as dis-ease in the physical body. So that's why it's really important to be aware of what's going on in your energetic system so you don't manifest dis-ease in your physical body. So these bodies mature at different ages. The physical body matures at age 16, and then the unconscious mind or emotional body is going to mature by age 21, we hope. And then the conscious mind is going to be mature by mid-30s, and then the higher conscious mind, or the spiritual body, is going to be matured by about 40. And that's why in some traditions, you can't be a shaman until you're over 40. You can't be a spiritual teacher until your spiritual body is mature. So these layers of energy body is how we interact with different dimensions and different densities. Now, this is so interesting. When I went to Sunday school, I always heard this, keep your robes clean for the day of my return. And I was like, why does Jesus want me to do my laundry? Like, I never understood that. But I think it's related to your energy body, the robes that you wear. And in Revelation 7:9, it says, after this I looked, and there was before me a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation and tribe of people and language, standing before the throne and in front of the Lamb. And they were wearing white robes. Remember, white has all 7 colors in them. They were wearing white robes and holding palm branches in their hands. These are they who have come out of the great tribulation. They have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Blessed are those who wash their robes, that they may have the right to the tree of life and may go through the gates into the city. Now here's in the Kabbalah, the Kabbalistic tree of life is also to me related to the temple of the body. And that to me is the tree of life. And this tree of life fits very nicely into our flower of life. Also in Daniel 12:10, it says, many will purify themselves and be made white and be refined, but the lawless will act lawlessly, and none of the lawless shall understand, but those who are wise shall understand. So the intent of God is absolutely independent. It is not affected by anything of the manifest world. The intent of God originates in the primordial depths of the absolute. Therefore, in order to manifest the true intent, one has to be completely free from the attachments of the lower self. And those chakras are the lower chakras. The heart chakra is the bridge to the higher vibrations. Miracles worked by an avatar are actions of his consciousness from the state of emergence with the Creator. A seeker of God gains this ability too, but only after mastering living in the higher self. So this chart shows you there's an upward spiral of emotions and there's a downward spiral of emotions. And I think we all know what joy is and knowledge, and I think we all know what grief and depression are, and there's everything in between. But we want to always try to be keeping ourselves lifted up. So reaction versus response, responsibility or the ability to respond. And ways to react and respond are related to sympathy, empathy, and compassion. Now, the way I understand this is that reactions are from the lower chakras. So sympathy is related to the belly, instinct, feeling. Empathy is related to the mind, opinion, and ego. So we don't really want to react to things. We don't really want to use sympathy and empathy. We want to bridge to the spiritual so that we can use response, which is called responsibility. Using compassion, we engage the heart, which is the higher feeling, and it encourages belief in others and the ability of others to solve their own problems. So sympathy says, I feel your problem. Let me solve it for you. I give you pity. It's the second to the second hookup down here. And it creates exhaustion. Empathy means, I feel your problem and I want to validate you. So I'm going to project it back to show that I understand. And then we get into this little loop here. From the second to second projected back through the third. And this creates confusion of ownership of the problem and also exhaustion. So the heart hookup to me is the way to go, compassion. And with compassion, we have the heart hookup right here, green to green. And it says, I feel your problem. I know, because I've had problems too. And I'm confident knowing the laws of energy that you can resolve your problem. I believe in you. Your problems are created out of your energy, and you control your own energy. So you're receiving and responding from the 4th chakra, and that's how you see the big picture, and that's how you can be supportive to others. Frequency. Well, what's frequency? Number of times any regularly repeated event occurs in 1 second, but everything is composed of its own specific frequency of expression. Existence is vibration. If it's vibrating, it's existing here. There's also a thing called vibrational levels of consciousness. So 1 to 7 is plants, related again to the root. Animal consciousness is 8 to 14. and humans are at 15 to 21. Now, there's some shape-shifting ability from animal to human. So a human that's vibrating down at 15, sometimes we say, oh, he's such an animal. But sometimes, if you want to shape-shift, you might have to get down into that animal energy. And the higher humans are up. That means you have ability to talk to the spirit world a little more easily. 22 to 28, the heart, the bridge, the center of the overall plane, or death. And you can choose to reincarnate from here. And then after that, you're just off into the spiritual realm. Again, we have our map of consciousness, all these different frequencies, from shame to enlightenment, and the different energetic frequencies associated, the emotional states, humiliation to bliss, and the view of life, miserable to perfect to is, I am. So you have to check once in a while, check in, see if any of your chakras are blocked, see if you have any chakra symptoms. You can stop that flow of energy anywhere. And I think that's what this symbol from a lot of our religions is trying to say. Jesus is going as above, so below. And they have these flaming hearts, and these hearts are burning that ego from the mental body away, burning away the ego of the mind so that you can bridge to the heart and access the higher chakras, the higher awareness. So again, the information path. Now you can stop it anywhere. So sometimes people want to stop it in the belly. They're going to get problems with their guts. People want to stop it back here. They're going to be pissed off. They're going to have trouble with their kidneys. People can't pull it up into the heart. They're going to get indigestion. Some people can pull it up into the heart, but they can't speak it. So they're going to get pain between the shoulder blades. Some people can speak it, but they don't want to really take it in. They're going to get a headache. And then, of course, we want to be able to release through the crown. All right, the human heart's magnetic field can be measured several feet away from the body. Negative emotions create nervous system chaos. Positive emotions do the opposite. It creates coherence. Positive emotions increase the brain's ability to make good decisions. And you can boost your immune system by focusing on positive emotions. Positive emotions create physiological benefits in your body. In fetal development, the heart forms and begins beating before the brain, so we have an intelligence in our heart. And a mother's brain waves can synchronize to her baby's heartbeat when they're only a few feet away. The human heart rhythms and our brain waves vibrate with Earth's magnetic resonance, because you are a Tesla coil. We are technology, the DNA skin suit technology, DNA lineage technology that's been cultivated in a system existing outside of universal time. Time is an artifact of our consciousness. And we also have the concept of reincarnation. Most Bible scholars say there's no proof in the Bible for it, and not many Christians agree that reincarnation is possible, but I suggest that we reassess this, as I sense we are much more than we've been told we are. And here is a teaching from the Temple of Hathor at Dandara about this. Now, this teaching shows us the eternal cycling through the evolving stages of consciousness. So you have to look closely here. Can you see the two outer pedestals with the lotus flowers on top? This pedestal here and this pedestal here. The one on the left is tilted with an image of the whore, the falcon, on top of it, and it represents the seed of consciousness. Above that, you see Kepher. Where's my thing? There's Kepher, right there, the scarab beginning his journey of pushing the sun across the symbol representing Newt. And that's this line here, Newt, the sky, or the Milky Way. And this is the alchemical journey. Underneath the symbol of Newt, Thoth, which is this guy here, is cosmic consciousness or wisdom from above. So Thoth is depicted as the ibis bird, as wisdom from above, and this other figure here, and they're holding the field of vision with the eye of Ra on it, right here. So they're holding up the field of vision. The eye, or the eye, the observer, the consciousness itself. On the far right side, you can see a pillar with the lotus in perfect balance with the sun in the place over top. That's right here. And there's the sun over top. And this is the depiction of Thoth as the baboon, which is wisdom from within. So we have wisdom from above and wisdom from within as the baboon, the heart of consciousness. And then underneath, you see the ibis birds, and they're walking back to the path to start the cycle again. So we're always in this cycle. So consciousness experiences itself as, again, this tick-tock pattern into and out of balance. Now, there's a couple of sayings in the Bible that I think are related to reincarnation and consciousness. John 17:18. The reason the Father loves me is that I lay down my life in order to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have the authority to lay it down and the authority to take it up again. This charge I have received from my Father. So I think this is an understanding of the free will of a conscious being, and that our consciousness, our human consciousness, is actually our eternal self. So your true self is free and it cannot be contained. So Ptah, out of the blue, the energetic life matrix blueprint, the information pattern available to all life. It's also related to William Reich's orgone energy, which is something we can't go into right now, but you can read more at tinfoilhatlady.com. The blog is called Out of the Blue, and it's also related to the spontaneous generation of life. So you can see more at Gaia, Wisdom Teachings. It's so good. It's an alternative media that I've found. It's just like Netflix, but it has a lot of great stuff, and it has the highest frequency programming on it. So Ptah, the information pattern from Out of the Blue. And there's a picture of blood cells with these blue halos around them, and this is what I'm talking about. This is the energy around life. I work in hematology, and I look at a lot of blood cells. So again, in Wisdom Teachings, they have an episode about spontaneous evolution. Basically, what it's about is that you can take sand, sterilize it, get distilled water, put it in a test tube, add a little electricity, and then next thing you know, critters are generated. So these critters are generated spontaneously from the blueprint of life that we all have access to. And these are some of these critters. So I just wanted to show you a few of them. And they're a little bit complex, actually. Fractal scaling laws of the universe. Again, please look at Nassim Harameyn's work. He also had an award-winning physics paper about the fractal scaling laws of the universe. So no one can snatch them out of my hand. My Father has given them to me as greater than all. No one can snatch them out of my Father's hand. I and my Father are one. So I really think that what Jesus is talking about here is that we are each a microcosm of the divine. I and my Father are one. This is the picture of the toroidal feedback system from Nassim Harameyn's black hole and crossing the event horizon. They are great videos. The toroidal system is everything that's inherent in nature. The galaxy's feedback, the Earth's energy feeds back, your body feeds back, and Apple feeds back. Blood cells feed back. And this is the actual geometric shape, the vector matrix equilibrium, and it's related to the Sri Yantra. When you say Om into the tonoscope, which is where we can see what sound creates form that Hans Jenny made, this is the actual geometric form that forms. So Om is the sound of the vector matrix equilibrium. Sound creates form. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John 1:1. And that's also related to the Vitruvian Man of Da Vinci, your hand, all these patterns. The flower of life pattern. It's also in the proportions of your body. Your body follows the fractal scaling laws. This is your beautiful Tesla coil. So our consciousness is related to that consciousness of the earth. And I think sometimes when our consciousness isn't clear, we get bad things happening, like hurricanes. There's been some pretty crazy things going on, and now we're getting some pretty crazy weather. So we're going to have a 5-minute break now, and we're going to start again in about 5 minutes. Everybody can get up and walk around and maybe get a bathroom break. The bathroom is through there. And I'm going to put some music on while you guys are having a 5-minute break. I'll ring the bells when we start again. I don't know if anybody's outside, but we're going to start again because holy doodle, hey? Thank you for not passing out and still being here and not running screaming to the exit. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, so let's continue. So we're talking about twin serpents. We're talking about twin systems. So now we're going to change gears, hard shift here, and we're going to talk about common law and corporate legal law. So we have two systems. We have common law, which is the law of the land or natural law, and we have the corporate legal system of the water, which is man's law. Common law is inherent rights, inalienable rights given to us by Creator, given to you by the fact of your being or being born on earth. Corporate legality created by man is an imposed system that we give credence to, that we contract with, that we say it's okay. And it's also known as maritime admiralty law or Universal Commercial Code, UCC. And in courtrooms, you often see a gold fringe around a flag, and that denotes that you are under this jurisdiction. So we're talking about legal things, which is man's law, versus lawful things, which is God's law. Natural law. So our friend here, Martin Luther King Jr., had something to say about it. Now, what is the difference between the two? How does one determine whether a law is just or unjust? A just law is a man-made code that squares with the moral law or law of God. An unjust law is a code that is out of harmony with the moral law. To put it in terms of St. Thomas Aquinas, an unjust law is a human law that is not rooted in eternal law and natural law. Any law that uplifts human personality is just. Any law that degrades human personality is unjust. And let us not be judged by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. He was very awesome, and I wonder what he would say about what's going on today. So, are you sure that you're actually a person? This is kind of a confusing word, and this slide has a lot of words on it. So I'm going to try to break it down for you. So a person in general usage, a human being, a natural person, though by statute term may include, so that means these things can also be termed persons, labor organizations, partnerships, associations, corporations, legal representatives, trustees in bankruptcy, or receivers. The person is similar to a company or corporation in that it exists as a construct of the imagination. It has no real body and no soul to save, but for legal purposes, it carries similar rights and attributes to that of a human man or woman. So a person can actually be a corporation under the legal system. Inasmuch as every government is an artificial person, an abstraction, and a creature of the mind only, a government can interface only with other artificial persons. The imaginary, having neither actuality nor substance, is foreclosed from creating and attaining parity with the tangible. The legal manifestation of this is that no government, as well as any law, agency, aspect, court, etc., can concern itself with anything other than corporate artificial persons and contracts between them. So what does that mean? It means the government is fake, and it can only talk to other fake things. Okay? It's a pretend thing, and it needs to talk to other pretend things. So this is what the legal system has done. A person or a persona equals a mask. The state, as a corporate abstraction, cannot create real people. It can't have children, but it can create the masks that each of us are forced to wear. Well, not really forced, but we wear them. So these masks can be, they wear these masks, and we can regulate taxes. We can control the creation through the masked person. Men and women operate under common law. The person is ruled by statute, codes, and regulations due to contracts that we as people have made with the government. So your person is the name, always in capital letters, on your birth certificate, your driver's license, your social security number. It's kind of hard to get a job without one of those. Your utility bills, and even on the tubes of blood I see of you guys in the lab, your name is with a barcode and all in capital letters. All in capital letters. These are contracts you've made with the government. because governments can only interface with this legal personality. So it's a straw man, it's an avatar. We have two systems: the real, the private, the living, universal law, natural law, common law, constitutional law, law of the land. It's lawful. And then we have the legal system, the law of the sea, commercial law, admiralty, maritime law, statutory legislation. It's public, corporations. It's a fiction. It's dead. So there's jurisdictions. There's common law jurisdictions. The law of the land, the law of the land, the law of the sea. So it's the people's law and the commercial law. Statutes, acts, and codes. We also have right or wrong, or legal or illegal. We have man or woman or corporation. Crimes that don't have a victim. Under common law, you have to have a victim to make a crime. But a parking ticket, is that a crime? No, that's not a crime. Driving without a driver's license isn't really a crime because you have the right to travel. But we all go and get our driver's license. We give credence to that. So there's a record of live birth, there's a birth certificate, there's rights and freedoms, and there's privileges and benefits. There's natural men and women and artificial persons played by actors. So there's two different systems going on here. I just want to look a little closer here. Right, private, sovereign, and public servant. We are actually sovereign individuals, but we have made it okay to have parity with the legal system. We are governed by a de facto legal system, not the lawful common law. And this has happened over time. So we have the two systems. For example, Canada's the same way, but I'm going to use America. There's America, the country inhabited by humans, and then under the law, there's the United States Corporation. Saskatchewan is actually a corporation as well. There's the real human you and the unreal you, the avatar straw man. There's land, you can hold it in your hand. There's water. You can't hold that in your hand. There's real gold and silver, and then there's Federal Reserve notes or Bank of Canada money. It's debt. Who tried to make real money? Lincoln and Kennedy. What happened to them? Yeah. Consciousness and devoid of consciousness. Common law is present now. Under the UCC, you have to be represented by a lawyer or a solicitor. One is lawful, one is legal. One is real fact, one is fiction. One is substance, one is reflection. It's unreal. Smoke and mirrors. One is the thing, one is the thing named. Here's a real apple, here's the word apple. Creditor, lender, debtor, borrower. The object, the symbol. The physical body or the paper certificate of live birth, the manifest. Now, Jordan Maxwell does a whole wonderful lecture about this. I can't get into it right now, but this is a very interesting thing. So we basically have let go of our spiritual cord and we've grabbed onto this corporate identity. Prior to 1868, we were sovereigns. Now we are products of maritime admiralty banking. So 1868, the corporation-funded U.S. corporation. If you worked for this corporation, you were a citizen, not an employee. U.S. citizens are employees of a foreign outside America corporation, and it is owned privately in the UK, Henry, in the UK. Yeah, oh. So it's the thing named, not the thing. Maritime admiralty law is associated with water, and it's all about words. So a human being, men, women, and children, defined in Black's Law Dictionary as a vassal, a tenant, a fiduciary, owing feudal allegiance. A person is defined as a human being, an entity, such as a corporation, recognized by law as having rights and duties of a human being. So we've given corporations the same right as human beings. An artificial person is defined as an entity such as a corporation created by law and given certain legal rights and duties of a human being. A being real or imaginary who for the purpose of legal reasoning is treated more or less as a human being. Also termed fictitious person, juristic person, legal person, moral person. A straw man may also be thought of as a legal fiction. So this is the avatar they want you to work with. So who is the straw man avatar? The corporate you. This is a mini corporation, a legal fractal. A person under the law. Now, there used to be a commercial on TV where a really awesome actress was sitting in our parliament saying, and women wanted to be in the parliament, but they couldn't because they weren't persons under the law. But then we were made persons under the law. And I used to cry and get all emotional and think, oh, it's so wonderful, we're persons under the law. No, it's totally bad. That means that now women can be exploited as corporations just as well. It's actually horrible. Persons under the law, I'll never forget that. So a corpse is a dead thing. It's a corp. It's not real. You are now diminished from a human to a mere resource. And we have a lot of human resource departments, don't we? Yes. So how is this thing opposed upon the real you? Well, meet your straw man. The capital letter name is the straw man avatar. This fraudulent act gives government a legal person with whom to deal with directly. That's why when a cop pulls you over, just say, oh, I don't have my license with me. Because they have nobody to talk to then. As soon as you give them your license, they can write you a ticket. If you go, oh, yeah, well, I don't have my license on me, and they say, well, I'm going to give you a note here that says you've got to come down with your license in 72 hours. You say, yes, sir, and then you ignore it. That's the trick. I've done it. But they want you to comply, right? We all go, yes, oh, yes, I must go in 72 hours with yes, I must give them my corporate identity so they can write me a ticket so I can pay them. You're sovereign. So this fraudulent act gives governments a legal person with whom to deal with directly. This legal person has your name all in capital letters. So to capitalize, what is that? To take advantage of, to use to one's own advantage. Now, sometimes we get in the hospital John Does, and we're all like, oh, a John Doe totally doesn't have any ID. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, that's just awful. No, that's a sovereign. That's a sovereign individual. A person who is his own master. Capital letters, capitis diminuto, diminishing of status through the use of capital letters in Roman law. So we are still using Roman law. A diminishing or abridgment of personality, a loss or curtailment of a man's status or aggregate of legal attributes and qualifications. Wow, and with that, you have been dehumanized. So Martin Luther King says this is bad because this is not good for people. So there's real people, and then there's fake people with social security numbers. And this is where they want you to be. This is how we function as a corporation, a fractal, a mini corp. An amendment which makes corporations persons, confusing the people with the term which denotes a corporation, not a flesh and blood human being, a human doing. The U.S. citizens residing in one of the states of the Union are classified as property, and franchises of the federal government as individual entity. Citizens are actually employees of the United States Corporation. The District of Columbia is its own nation state, just like the city of London and the Vatican. So those are the three rulers: the City of London, the financial, the Vatican, the spiritual, and DC, the military. And that's the holy trinity of the corporate world. So, is a person property? No, we are spiritual beings. Slavery equals corporate personhood. We must eventually reject this notion, and crime foisted upon us through the Fed, the Federal Reserve, and the Bank of Canada, and all banks. Governments can print money at no cost, But do they? No, they allow private banks like the Federal Reserve to do so at debt to the people. Your birth certificate is actually collateral on loans, so we can't get too far into this, but this is how it happened. Through wars and debts that countries owed to bankers, they eventually gave up your birth certificate as collateral on loans. And this goes back to the beginning of the Federal Reserve that was created on Jekyll Island way back in the 40s, or I think maybe it was 37. So slavery is the legal fiction that a person is property. Corporate personhood is the legal fiction that property is a person. Legal versus lawful. Legal equals man-made rules invented by the ruling class. Lawful pertains to laws of the land based on common sense. Legislation only carries the force of law when consented to by the governed. Policies, statutes, and acts are corporate contracts. No injured third party, there should be no crime committed. Banks superimpose a legal system based on commerce. It's a let's pretend, unreal, not common law, but consensus reality. It's expectation, not experience. We talked about that earlier. So again, we have the lawful field of consequence and the eye of the observer. Do you remember back in Egypt, the eye, the biospiritual you? Now, this eye, its gaze has been turned to the legal system, the field of governance, presumptions, executive orders, private military, admiralty, the legal you, the straw man. Credence, what is it? It's a noun. Belief is to the truth of something, to give credence to a claim, something giving a claim to belief or, something gaining a claim to belief or confidence, a letter of credence. So there's our eye of consciousness focused on the legal system. But remember, the observer, this eye here, that is you. That is your consciousness, the aspect of the human self. And it's been usurped, and its symbol is used to represent the criminal control system. The USA is not America. Notice how they've usurped the eye on the top of the pyramid. This is for a reason. So there's the Republic. The Constitution recognizes natural rights for men and women. That's lawful. But most of us just know the legal system. Corporation grants privileges to US citizens. It works the same in Canada, but they've done more work on it in America, so it's easier to learn by studying America. Artificial entities, including corporations, persons, residents, inhabitants, defined and described by US codes, statutes, and ordinances, includes Congress, courts, and executive branches. Banks superimpose the legal system based on commerce. So again, the DC is at the top. The real people are over here, and the real reality is right under this pyramid. The good thing to know is that we are the base of the pyramid. So if we pull out, the whole thing falls down. And who did this to us? The maritime merchants, the pirates, the skull and bones. It's a story that's been going on for a long time. So what are our remedies? Morality or conformity? This topic is vast, and I urge you to research Ubuntu. I have a book on it here tonight. It's a new thing that's come out of South Africa from Michael Tellinger, and it's about contributionism. And I think it's a really good idea, and eventually I hope in the next couple of generations it catches on. Because I think if people were allowed to trade their talents and skills, mental health would improve, people would feel valued in society. Money is the last control mechanism. It's been with us for about 6,000 years now, and it's a let's pretend stupid idea. And there would actually be abundance for everybody if we were all allowed our talents and skills. It's not a one-to-one trade like money, it's a one-to-many trade. Just like an apple tree doesn't just grow one seed, it grows many apples with many seeds. You have many talents and skills that you can trade. And this is a big thing, so I can't go into it too much, but remember, what's ISIS? We've turned goddess Isis into the money sign, and also a terrorist group. So there are people who call themselves freemen on the land, and you might have heard of these people. There's a guy in Canada called Robert Monroe, and you can look him up on Facebook. He is one of the guys that taught me about this. So a freeman on the land is a human being in a common law jurisdiction. It's a tough road to hoe. one who has revoked consent to be represented and thus governed, and therefore is not subject to any bylaws or orders. Making a claim of right to one's own sovereignty sets one free from statutory law and allows the freeman to charge via a fee schedule. Here's the notice of violation. I notice your notice. So it sets one free from statutory law and allows the freeman to charge via a fee schedule for any violation of his sovereignty through a notary public process. This makes the freeman exclusively bound only to common law. Under common law, a freeman would revoke any licenses, his social security card, social insurance number, and his birth certificate. Back in the day, we just wrote names in the Bible in the church when people were born. But once the system came in, you had to be documented as a little mini corporation, and that's where these birth certificates come in. So when we do it to our own children when they're born, thinking we're doing the right thing. But it's very difficult to live in a world where you can't really get employment without a social security number. It's very interesting times. So what can we do? We can research things like Ubuntu and see if we can develop these contributionistic societies now. Smaller communities like bigger or small towns might be able to implement this, maybe even Vanscoy. You never know, it might work on a small scale, and then once it gets popular. But Wisdom Teachings, Gaia TV also has a series that Michael Tellinger does on Ubuntu, and I think it's called Human Origins or something like that. So it's really good to have Netflix and also have Gaia.com. It's the same thing as Netflix, only it's high frequency. You can also detach from the corporate system any way that you see fit. You can employ your independent thinking, your creativity, make something new. We need to grow a new system, like right through the dead grass. We can't change the existing system. It's rigged against us. It's rigged against us for a reason, but we can grow out of the old. And we can also do meditation in groups. It's really important to understand that our thoughts create our reality. And meditation isn't just something that means nothing. It actually creates coherence in a vast area in the environment around you. Where two or more are gathered, there so am I. Love, love, love. There is no evolution without love. Love, evolve spelled backwards is love. And compassion for self first, and then others, of course. So anybody knows who Terence McKenna is? No? Yes? No? Yes? He's passed away now, but he was a great doer of hallucinogens and other things to explore consciousness. He was a consciousness explorer. And he says you have to take seriously the notion that understanding the universe is your responsibility, because the only understanding of the universe that will be useful to you is your own understanding. So, Lao Tzu has some stuff to say to us too. Watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become habit. Watch your habits, they become character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. So the content of character is all. Let us not be judged by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. So, it's not about your race. It's not about your gender, it's not about your sexuality, and it's definitely not about your politics. It's about your character and your consciousness. And please remember that. So, you can make waves. You are a strong, powerful, electromagnetic Tesla coil being. Never forget that. So we're going to use our powers within, our psychic powers, our intuitive powers, our faith, our imagination, our concentration. So in Washington, there was a crime study that showed that there was a 23.3 drop in violent crime due to meditating groups. They also did this in the Middle East, and it worked wonders. A 2-month national project conducted in Washington showed that how a coherence-creating group of transcendental meditators could reduce crime and social stress and improve the effectiveness of even government. I guess it helped those people to think a little better too about what they were doing. So here's the chart. The yellow line is percent change in homicides, rapes, and assaults. The coherence-creating group size is in green. So the more meditators, the greater the effect. Now notice at 4 weeks or 30 days, so here's the 4-week mark here, we got a really strong effect. And Dr. Phil says it takes 30 days to break a habit. So after 4 weeks, you really see the change. So there's scientific proof that when you have a lot of people in meditation, it brings peace to the whole environment and coherence and harmony. So enlighten yourself. The higher your vibration, the more light you hold, the more photonic beings you invite into yourself. Wisdom of holding more light, or the wisdom of more photons. Enlightenment. Now that was a lot we just went through. So I want you to just take a moment here, pause, close your eyes, take one fully conscious breath. Inhale and exhale. And take a moment to invite those photons into your being and saying hello to all those photons that make up your being. One more fully conscious breath. Beautiful. Slowly open your eyes. Well done. The other thing we can do is use sacred sound. When I rang the bells to call you guys back, that's sacred sound. Sound creates form. The throat chakra is the first phase of manifestation. First was the Word, and the Word was with God. Mantras, chants, prayers, and blessings are powerful. That's something we can all do, is offer our blessings to each other. Instead of going, oh, I had such a terrible day. This is what happened to me today. Yeah, I tried to park my car, and then my tire got flat, and then I got a parking ticket, and it was just terrible. And I went to the grocery store, and they didn't have any sprouts. And the sprouts that they did have, they were just terrible. But if we try to go through our day leaving blessings, you're going to find that you're going to change your day, and you're probably going to change the day of very many other people that you meet as you go. So why did the walls of Jericho come crashing down? They marched around Jericho and marched around Jericho, and they made a standing wave of a sound energy. And then what happened? Somebody blew a trumpet, and that last sound was enough to bring those walls down. Sound is very powerful. Also spelling. Why do we call it spelling? Because we're making a spell. We're casting a spell. Your words are very powerful. Don't swear into a microphone. Don't do it. It's not good. Cymatics is the science of how sound creates form. And here's a crop circle, and I think some of them that are real, some of them are not real, are created by sound. And this is, whoops, what did we do there? Oh no, we're good. This is some talcum powder, and again, putting sound through it, we see that we get a coherent geometry. No, sorry, my thing just skipped away here. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't want to go to the next slide. Oh boy. Talk to it. Talk to it. Help. Go to the next slide. Oh my goodness. I don't know what to do. It won't go to the next slide. Oh my goodness. Yeah, do you think it'll just take a second? Maybe if I start it over again, I'm not sure. This won't go to the next slide. I might have to just, we were doing so good. It's moving to the next slide here, but not on my thing. Anyway, I guess I could try to normal view. No, it doesn't want to respond. Oh, I'm sorry, you guys. You were doing so good. Well, anyway, I'm just going to leave you with something. We were almost at the end. The point is, sound creates form. And I didn't get to Om, but I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Om. So, Om, A-U-M, the A stands for creation, the U stands for preservation, and M for dissolution. So when we say Om, that is actually the sound of the universe, the sound of creation, and the vector matrix The vector matrix equilibrium. It's the flower of life. It's actually the vocalization of the flower of life. So that is a sound that's very sacred, and it comes to us from all ancient traditions. And I highly recommend that you use the sound Om when you're meditating. Our being is the observer, the one who watches, the one that is neither male nor female, but just is, the I am. Remember that God said from the burning bush when asked by Moses who he was, I am that I am. We are a mini fractalized version of the I am. So I'm going to get you just to take a moment to close your eyes again, because we're basically at the end here. And I'm going to read a poem for you to listen to as we close. I am made of energy. I will always exist. Whatever happens in my life is a vehicle to move me along, not a beginning or an end. No matter what the ego tells me, no matter what the body feels, those are merely experiences that I need to feel to achieve what I came here to do, be, and experience. On some level, I already know everything that needs to be known. I don't remember it all right now, because it would prevent me from the experience of here and now. When I seek my truth, it will come back to me. There is nothing to fear. There is infinite love here. All that glows divinely glows from within me. And remember that you are the guru, and we spell guru, G-U-R-U. So experience yourself. Create your own reality and do not look outside yourself for the leader. One more conscious breath. Exhale. And gently opening our eyes and remembering that we are the ones that we've been waiting for. And thank you very much for coming tonight. Thank you very much. Sorry about the sticky slide. I hope you all have a great evening. Do you have any questions at this point? Or, yes, go ahead.
I want to ask about detaching yourself from the corporate.
Right.
How, if we all did that, if we all became John Doe's, how could we ever influence it? I mean, didn't that come about so that it wouldn't be chaotic?
Well, that's interesting that you believe that. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, exactly. I think to be detaching from it is to start to be aware of it. So that when you get a parking ticket, look at it. It's a notice of violation of a statute or an act. It's not a crime. So it's a corporate law. So I'm just asking you to detach from that in the sense of understanding, oh, this is talking about the corporate me, because basically we've had our spiritual cord and our material cord, but society has allowed us to let go of our spiritual cord and grab onto the corporate cord. So instead of our spiritual avatar, we now have this corporate avatar.
But you're not advocating not voting?
Oh no, not at all. We have to do this, one little bit at a time. The first part is me standing here telling you about these concepts. No concept, no precept. A lot of people don't even perceive what I'm talking about. It took me years to even figure this out. There's actually a video called The Occult World of Commerce by Jason Whitney, and that really made me click about it. And that's where I got that one chart, where you're kind of cut down the middle between lawful and legal. And David Icke's book, And the Truth Shall Set You Free, is another book that is really great that addresses a lot of these concepts.
And did you say that crop circles were caused by sound?
I have a feeling that that could be true. A lot of them nowadays are hoaxed because it's big business, especially in the UK, Henry. Yeah. It's big business. It's like they'll have a crop circle, okay, all these tourists will come in, and the next thing you know, oh, there's a swath of crop circles made. Ooh, let's go and look at the crop circles. So I think there's some problems there. And my friend, the crop circle researcher, Robert Hulse, he's the one that first started to go in and start to find the board marks and started to find the physical evidence of hoaxing. Yeah, and a lot of them are fake, straight up. I would think, or else it's a six-dimensional entity moving through the earth, leaving a two-dimensional form. The Hopis say when the age changes, The power spots on the earth change, like the spots on the back of a fawn. So because England is sort of like the ear of the earth, all that chalk and everything there, maybe crop circles started to poke at England, then pretty soon it started to wake the energy grids of the earth. And then they started to come in other places, maybe, perhaps. But as time went on, people found that, you know, they could trick. And of course, black ops, secret governments, MI5, Henry. Yes, MI5. You know, the Dave and Doug scandal, you know, oh yes, drunk guys from the bar just went out and did all this, right? Because it's disinformation. So it gets people to go, oh, that's just fake. I'm not going to look at those. Those things might trigger your DNA to evolve. So the corporations don't want you to evolve. They want you to be a human resource. They want you working. They want you unhealthy. They want you to die early and procreate and have more slaves for them to exploit. They're not interested in keeping you healthy. They're not interested in your critical thinking or your education. They're interested in your compliance. So it's morality or complicitness, right? That's how it goes. Anybody else have any questions right now? Yes?
The legal part, it's all voluntary.
Correct. It is voluntary.
It's actually slavery. People choose to do it.
Well, sure, because they don't know another way. We don't have another way. We've lost our creativity to make that other way, and that's why I think the concept of Ubuntu, the contributionism philosophy is probably the best thing, and the Blue Avians really agree with that. That's the way we're going to save our planet eventually, is through Ubuntu, which means it's an African word, which means if it's not good for one, it's not good for anyone. So it's not about the iPhone and the iPod and you know, all that. It's more like we, even though the we has two eyes in it. Isn't that funny? Another question?
Related to that, how do you feel about what I call the security industry? And you must get that as a lab technician or all the
Technologist, but
but there's so much security that has been created in the last 20 years.
oh yeah.
It's frightening.
Oh yeah, of course, because they have to keep their human resources safe. And that's why they pay for my dental, right? Whenever I get my free dental, I'm like, oh, good, you know, they want to keep my mouth good so I can keep slaving away for them, right? They only want me healthy so I can work. They don't want me healthy to enjoy myself. They want me healthy because they own me. I put my little slave tag on and I beep in, beep, and I go in, do my stuff, rock the blood, give the answers, go home, go to sleep, wake up, beep, you know. I love it. I love my job, okay? I do. I'm not saying I don't like my job. I'm just saying I become aware of what I'm doing, right? And I'm doing a job. I'm not being a job. I'm a human being, and that's my human doing. But we have to start somewhere, and that's why I'm trying to give you guys this new conceptual wisdom, so hopefully other people will pick up on it. And you can see this now as you go forward in life. You can see the symbols of it. You can read what's a statuette, what's an act. You can do your own research, and please do your own research. Again, The Occult World of Commerce by Jason Whitney, intro by Jordan Maxwell, is a wonderful thing on YouTube. It's a wonderful lecture by a young man. Fantastic. Anybody else have a question?
But I do have a statement.
A statement. Ooh, okay, go Stace.
Or an additive.
An additive.
Just being that I'm raising small children
Yeah.
within a very commercialized union of raising children in schools. It used to be a privilege to go to school, and now it's not a privilege for my child to be there. It's a chore. It's their job. It's their
Right.
mission, and everybody's the same, and
Right.
nobody can be different. And you can't be first, and you can't be second, and you can't be 10th. You all are the same.
Yeah, homogenization. It's like Brave New World. We are all working.
Of allowing yourself to achieve greatness,
No,
whatever that may be. You're just all the same.
interesting.
And I have an issue with that.
So there's no first prize, second prize, everybody gets a trophy?
You go to sports day, and everybody gets the same thing.
Yeah.
There is no first. There is no coming in first. There's nothing to strive for, which is a part of the humanity. It's a part of us.
I think that's a really good point, Stacey, because it breaks down your authenticity and your self-esteem.
And will.
Yeah, and your will.
What makes you
Will is a really, really powerful word.
better than anybody else at anything?
Right,
Whether you're communicating this
right,
message,
right.
or cutting hair, or doing makeup, or, you know,
And I think that's why contributionism under the Ubuntu philosophy is really important, because that allows people then to trade their skills and talents and actually to find out what they are. Instead of going to school and being made into a little conformed, homogenous nothing, you actually then have to reflect on who you are, what your passions are, what your skills are, what brings you joy, and then you can offer that back to the community. And in that way, I really believe we'd have way more abundance than we do now.
Right?
Pardon me?
You said the opposite of, like God first, put others first, then yourself the positive
Right.
way of living.
Yeah.
It's
It's opposite, yeah. Self, others, and then you can emulate the divine. I agree. Was there another question over here somewhere?
I was just going to ask about karma.
Karma.
Karma, you were talking before about the 5 sun cycles. And
Yeah.
we keep coming back. Is it until we get it right? Or is it,
Is it until we get it right? Well, there's nothing wrong.
but I mean,
Okay,
is there
but-
just the karma to determine where you will be in your next cycle?
Well, that's up to your soul individually. Like, I believe that when you pass, you judge you. You have a life review, and you get to feel all the love you shared, and you get to feel all the pain you shared. And then you get to say, hey, what was my plan? My plan was this. How did I do? I did pretty good. You know what? I need a rest for about a millennium, We are eternal spiritual beings. This is a stage, and we're acting a little drama, and life is short. Life is not long. People in the Bible live for like 900 years, 800 years. Why is that? Did they have those life extension technologies? Were the pyramids actually something that gave out life force so that people actually lived longer? I think so. And I think that after the cataclysm, there was a big struggle to get back to that. But I think it's just a natural evolution. We can't all understand right now, because we're in a limited form here. We've come down here and incarnated as little bits of Creator to feed information back to Creator. Because Creator can't come down here himself, or herself, or itself, or whatever way you want to put it. So we are little avatars of Creator that have come down here, like leaves on a tree, right? They die, they fertilize the tree, and then they come out again. So there's nothing wrong. So I don't know, karma, I don't like to believe that there's anything wrong. There's wisdom collection opportunity. So what's karma? It's whatever you decide. So, and I think you also incarnate with groups of people. Like, we probably all know each other on the other side, because you guys all showed up for me. So you must know me some way, or you want a ticket. Now you know me, too bad for you. But you won that ticket for a reason, So you also incarnate with groups of people. Right, Henry?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Definitely incarnated with Henry for a reason.
There's a thought that's been coming up while you've been talking, and I want to know what your thoughts are. That you've said humans, like human doing, human being.
Right.
We've all tested out humans consuming information. And there's something that you said that there was a link between, so what is consuming knowledge? Does that mean you know? Is that gnosis? It isn't, because it comes from experience. You talked about experiential becoming knowing.
Right.
So what do you think would be a baby step in relation to moving away from human consuming into being or experiencing for our own culture? Like, what's the baby step? Because we can talk about this, but it's kind
Well, we live in consumer culture, right? So, I mean, we go and we buy things right
not
now.
just things, ideas.
Yeah.
We're all rapidly on our
Well,
phones all
there's
the
a
time.
difference between intellect and wisdom,
Yes.
right? There's a big difference between, like, I really think that the yellow solar plexus, the mental body, the intellect is actually Satan, is actually the devil. Because it's witty, it's bright, it's clever. It has intellectual prowess, but it's not wise. And that's why the heart is above the mental body. So you have to move from the intellect and your intellectual knowing of this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong, to this is. Remember that big chart? The very top was is. Is. So that's the eye. The eye sees what is. It doesn't judge. It doesn't say, that is bad, that is good, this or that. It's this and that. It's all. So it just sees what is, and that is. So it doesn't make that judgment. So it allows the experience. It doesn't make you conform to expectation. I'm not sure how to answer your question, Lorianne. I'm sorry. But we have to move away from over-intellectualization. We love to hang out in the third dimension. And the Hopis say we're moving to the fifth world, so we're moving to the fourth dimension, which is the heart. So if you're living in fourth dimension, you're living from heart-centeredness, from compassion. And the Hopis say we're moving now to the fifth world. Well, that's taking responsibility for our creations. So as soon as you speak, you're making a sound. And beautiful sounds create beautiful words. I mean, beautiful sounds create beautiful forms. I couldn't get to the slide that shows you Dr. Emoto's work. And you know Dr. Emoto? So if you put a label on water that says, I love you, then that crystal's gonna be beautiful. If you put a label on the water that says, you make me sick, that water's not gonna crystallize beautifully like that. Beautiful thoughts, beautiful words, be kind. It's no skin off your nose to be kind. In our culture, we think kindness is weakness. But it's not. It's the strongest thing you could do. Pardon, Ave? Or it's something, it's conditional, right? So we want to move to unconditional because we are all the same thing. We're all leaves on the same tree. We're all feeding the same tree. Any other questions or comments? No? Are we good? I thank you guys so much. If you want to know more, please go to tinfoilhatlady.com or email me, tinfoilhatlady@gmail.com. And I bless you all. Namaste.